what do you do when you wake up from your spiritual awakening? Because I think the biggest thing that I see, if I were just to like sum all this up, is you have to like live your life. You can't be
Yeah,
in the
I get it.
awakening all the time. Like we don't talk about like how do you live in this through this 3D body that you've chosen to incarnate into. It's not just about the spiritual experience.
Get to know the modern day mystics, the seers, the seekers, the oracles, the witchy women with one foot in divinity and the other deeply rooted in their humanity. Together we traverse the practical and the energetic. We will excavate the long buried, activate the once dormant, and we never skip the integration. The feminine revolution has risen, and she's calling you by name. Join me, your host, professional priestess Lindsay Schroeder, as we adventure, anoint, alchemize, and experience our deepest desires. This is more than an awakening. It's a remembrance. It's more than a conversation. It's a ceremony. Lindsay, all the Lindsays today. I want to jump right in. We were just chatting a little bit before we started recording about awakening from your spiritual awakening. Like after your first spiritual awakening, not just another spiritual awakening, because so many of us will go through multiple spiritual awakenings, but the actual like human awakening that so many of us come to after our spiritual awakening, where we're like, no, have I been bypassing while teaching about not bypassing? So I would love to just like dive right in there, setting the stage as both women who have had spiritual awakenings, who are doing a ton of work in the intuitive and in the psychic development. What happens when you hit that point where you're like, ah, I think I might need to awaken from my awakening? Talk to me about that.
I know. It's so funny. We were just joking about that. I love that you call it awakening from your awakening because that is like the best term ever. Yeah, because so many of us are like, I need help with my awakening, but then what
Yes.
happens when you've been in this evolution and you've gone through, we talk about like our spiritual awakening, it sort of has phases as part of your evolution, and then you get to a point where you're no longer like in this new space and things are very familiar and you've had dark nights of the soul and you've overcome and you've transmuted, and then and then we were talking about spiritual bypass, and then you're like, wait, am I spiritual bypassing like all this stuff, and I've been teaching about spiritual bypassing, but
Yeah.
am I actually not acknowledging that like I'm not facing my own bullshit when I need to be really acknowledging that? So yeah, it is part of that evolution. And I think the more that you go down this spiritual path, and I'm a Scorpio, I have a Scorpio stellium, a
Ooh,
Sag stellium. So I know. So I know I may have blonde hair, but I know the darkness.
yeah.
I work with like a lot of dark goddesses and all that stuff. I understand that, like, as you go on this journey, the level of transmutation and alchemy that happens over time, there is a depth that you walk into deeper and deeper and deeper, and you have to be able to hold that space. And a lot of times it can be really confusing. So, I resonate with that. What do you do when you wake up from your spiritual awakening? Because I think the biggest thing that I see, if I were just to like sum all this up, you have to like live your life. You can't be
Yeah,
in the
I get it.
awakening all the time. Like we don't talk about how do you live in this through this 3D body that you've chosen to incarnate into. It's not just about the spiritual experience. It's like I have a friend who she and I connect so much on a lot of spiritual topics. And like she's more the introverted, I'm a little more the extroverted, but also definitely a homebody. Um, but I see how we are evolving in our spiritual journey, and mine is almost like through experiences externalized in a way, like running up against things in my own life, and hers is like this subtle inner alchemical, and it's just like really interesting to see the dichotomy of how your spiritual awakening as it evolves can manifest itself through living, through this awakening from your awakening, but like you have to be
Uh,
living your life. And so the awakening V2 after you've awakened is how do I then take all of these things and infuse it into the life I'm here to live, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my God. The shift over the last like year and a half in even my like membership offerings, which I was really surprised that it shifted even down to that introductory level. I normally see a lot more of like my personal shifts show up in like my mastermind and my private client work, but my membership shifted to being called the spiral path, where I started talking about like, yes, we are ascending into our divinity, but we also need to descend into our humanity. So teaching people this like up and out, but back and down, and up and out and back and down, and like teaching integration and embodiment and digestion in this new way that is almost like those special stairs that they teach in like Inception, where like you're on a constant loop of this. You're going up, yet you're wait, I'm going down, but I'm going to, but I'm not getting anywhere. Yes, you are. I pinky promise you're getting somewhere. It doesn't feel like it right now, but you're getting somewhere because you're in this constant process of like, yes, I can go up and have these massive experiences. And we're not just talking medicines and dropping natural DMT. I'm not just talking the like true something outside of me experience, the experience with the self. There are these moments where I sit and practice with myself and I am visited or I'm hearing or I'm feeling or I'm having this massive experience. But then after I close that practice, I'm still going downstairs and making dinner. I'm still getting in the
Yeah.
car and going to pick up my kid. I'm still flicking somebody off who cuts me off in traffic and going, okay, okay, hang on, hang on. How did I get from this? Oh yeah, oh I'm so to like I am so reactive in such a short amount of time, and being able to like giggle in that and enjoy in that and express my humanity in that, and then do better and integrate and embody, and then get to a point where like the other day I had something happen with my daughter where she was playing in this large like play structure, and we were watching a bunch of her little like girlfriends and her, and they are in kindergarten, and there were a couple of older boys, like fourth grade boys up there, and I'm like, okay, I can feel something coming. Like I can feel and I'm like, okay, don't be that psychotic parent who's like crawling up there, getting her
Yeah.
down there because you know something's coming. And I literally had to watch a fourth grade boy push her down the slide and tumble her into a bunch of other little girls. And I was like, this is what it's all for. Like, this is what it's all for. Can I handle this and navigate this the way that like I would if I were in ceremony? Like if I had opened a container and if someone's demons were coming out and if I were helping them, if I were in priestess mode, in my full everything, how would I be handling this? And like I dropped my purse, my partner grabbed all my stuff, I ran up the thing, and I like looked at this kid and was like, where are your parents? Where are your parents? And he's like pointing, I'm like, I need you to come down with me and let's go find your parents. And that was truly the only thing I said to him. I'm like, I wouldn't want somebody's parent yelling at my child. I wouldn't want them talking to her, yelling at her. We're up on no. So I'm like, we need to get down. I need you to, where is your mom? Where is your dad? Where is your parent? Who are you here with? And it took us a while, and my partner is losing it. They're losing it. They're like shaking. They're so angry. They want to like go at this. And I'm like, this is still a child. Like, this is still a child. And like everything's coming together, and eventually we find their parent, and like now he's crying, and now we've collected several of the other girls' parents who tumbled down that slide too. And I'm like getting down next to my daughter, and eventually I'm saying something like, have you ever made a mistake, to the little girls who are like seething at this boy, angry at him. And like his mother is so panicked and so overwhelmed and is like, I can't believe them. And he is massive in comparison to these little ones. And we all get to this point where, like, she's thanking me, saying, like, thank you so much for bringing it to me and not yelling at him, not getting. And we all get to talk about it. And she's saying to him, like, did you apologize? And he's like, yes, I apologize. And she was like, maybe that's not enough. Have you asked if they need anything else? If there's anything else you could do to, like, make this better? Like, how do we. And like we get to show the girls, like, look at the moms here, and we do this whole thing. And when we separate, my partner is still like flying off the handle, so upset. But I'm like, look at what's modeled for her. I can't keep her from every situation out there in the world. I can't keep her from getting shoved down the slide by a fourth grade boy. But I can show her how to handle it and how to still be respectful of that person and how to not lose my own self for that. Now, mind you, this is not the first time that something's happened with my child. And the first time it happened, I lost it and was my partner. And I'm like, this is really integration and embodiment. And this is why I do all these things, so that when I am crawling down this structure in my beautiful dress after my daughter's practice, that I'm doing my breath work, that I'm tapping my anchor points, that I'm squeezing my hands, that I'm taking my deep breath, that I'm checking with my child, that I'm navigating all of the things that I'm like, this is priestess me in real life. And like, that is what we're going for. Not just that I can be that when I'm up and out, but that I can be that when I'm down and in the difficulty and in the muck. And like, that for me is the embodiment of that. It is time to awaken from the awakening, that it's not just about growing the throat and the third eye and the crown, but getting back into the root, getting safer and safer and safer in my own body in these situations, not just safe in my up and out practice. So I would love to hear from you some examples maybe in your own life, or of how you've supported clients in that transition, and like how we all can start to look at, okay, I have awakened, but that's not the end, that's the beginning. Like, the end of every step is just the beginning of the next step, and shifting into this journey-based travel.
Yeah, and I what I love about that story too is how you said, like, the last time something like this happened, I was not, you got to experience the contrast. And I think sometimes we don't think we've grown, or we can't see how far we've come, and then we have these, yeah, slightly traumatic experiences, but
Mhm.
we get to see in that contrast of how far we actually have come, because our immediate reaction is no longer the same. We're not triggered in the same way. We're not reactive in the same way. And it's like, and again, going back to that priestess energy of like really owning that priestess energy, you come back into the body because you've been doing the work internally, that the external forces are not as impacting anymore. Ultimately, our inner world is a reflection of our outer world, for better or worse, or how that looks, and or what we need to overcome and evolve. But I love that story so much because it was so clear, like the embodiment, and so clear of like the communication. And yeah, that was so beautiful. It's funny, I think about like that same like experience of like the contrast and like my own journey. And I always laugh, like my clients, they see me being able to channel and do all these things, and like we, astral travel and remote view, and all these different things, because I teach into it. Like one of the things that I do and have so much fun doing is like this intuitive development. We're gonna do fire scrying tomorrow, actually, in my small group
Cool.
class. I know. I was like,
Yeah.
let's celebrate like the witchy, spooky season. I was like,
Yeah.
tomorrow, this week we're gonna do fire scrying, so we're gonna play with fire tomorrow. But they see me leading all of these different types of modalities, channeling all these different things, and they think like, oh my gosh, like I can never be like that. And I always laugh because I just want to say, if you knew who I was 5 years ago,
Right.
I
Oh
wouldn't
my
even
god.
say I will be doing this. Like, there's no way. Like, I laugh. I lived in Austin for like 8 or 9 years. And I remember coming back, like after I had had this whole awakening, and I had even had it when I was in Austin, but I kept all of my work and my work that I was doing to like understand what was going on to myself. I didn't really share it to my friends because that wasn't their thing. And I
Yeah.
remember when I came back a couple of years ago, and they were like, please sit down. And you need to tell us what's going on because we had no idea you had any of these gifts. And I was like, I didn't either. Like I knew, but like I didn't really know how to actualize them or like what was
Yeah.
going on. And and so it's like I think about that transformation in my personal life and in my evolution and my ability to serve and help clients and evolve in my work and access, higher aspects of the principles that I teach and that I work with them. That's all through this journey. But yeah, 5 years ago,
Mm.
I wasn't doing any of this stuff. And I had so much anxiety. I was so
Mm.
reactive. I was so in that, frame of mind of do things my way because I have this spiritual awakening and I can see a better vision or a better future. I'm also a projector in human design. Was not
Same.
waiting for the
Yeah.
yeah, wasn't waiting for
Yes.
the invitation.
It's the hardest piece of it. Like, it's the hardest piece of it, and it's, like, the most basic piece of being a projector, and yet it is the thing that, like, shackles us for so long. Like, because it's so hard. You're like, "I truly like, I have the
What I
answers. I
see.
can see it. I," and you're like, "Oh, that's the problem, isn't it? The I?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay." And no
I
matter
know.
how many times you hear it, you're like, "It doesn't click until it clicks." Like, I can read "Wait for the invitation" as many times, and yet I'm still, like, finagling, like, how do I write my own invitation and casually drop it in their lap so that they spill it, and then I'm like, "Oh, you gave it to me. Okay, thanks, bye."
Like, okay, one of my, like, terms for a while used to be, "Are you a" like, especially when I was in corporate, I would be like, "Are you available for some feedback?" And they're like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Thank you for the invitation for
Wonderful. Right?
feedback."
You kick the doors wide
I know,
open, your
like,
Elwood's showing up on the first day of law
yeah.
school. You're like, with your fuzzy pen, "I'm ready."
I'm ready. I'm ready. I have everything I want to tell you. But yeah, I mean, it is. And a
Meanwhile,
lot of it is, it's funny because if there are projectors listening to this, like, I think the being in that priestess energy, that queen energy is really being in your body and sitting
yes.
back and sitting up
Yes.
and receiving. It's not constantly inputting information. It's allowing that to come to you and let people come to you. Let them ask you questions. So it is funny though, because I still struggle, like, I'll be, really leaning into, like, wait for the invitation. But if those people in that room truly knew how hard I was fighting in my body to not say anything,
Right?
I just look like this. But I am like, oh my gosh, the things I want to say, but I have to really, like,
Yes.
go back into my body and ground and pull myself back in. But yeah, um, I mean, it's interesting, I mentioned earlier, like, how I have a lot of, like, Scorpio and Sag
Yeah,
in my
which I
chart.
love. Oh,
I
I
know.
love a Scorpio. Give me the deep, dark depths. Like, oh, you want to journey deep down and inward? That's like, that's how my Sagittarius shows up because I'm a Sag sun. But when I would learn about Sagittarius, especially in a sun sign, I'm just like, that's not me. That's not me. And then the first time that I was like, oh, the travel could be inward. Got it.
Oh,
Now I
yeah,
get it. Because everybody was like, "Oh, do you wanna live out of a backpack? Do you wanna travel?" I was like, "No, I don't. I wanna live in my bathtub with all of my stuff." So how like, this isn't me, and then I realized, like, oh, some Sagittarius, especially when you throw the projector in, and especially when you throw a bunch of the other stuff in, the travel obsession, the journeying is like ceremony journeying, like astral journeying, like journeying to other but like inward journeying, outward
yeah,
but it's not just my, like, physical body because I love travel, but, like, I'm not a, "Let's be a nomad, let's live out of a backpack." I'm like, "Oh, no." But every day, for the most part, I, like, vibrationally travel. Like, I'm in the
yeah.
no-thing space at least once a day, if not multiple times a day.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I am definitely like a travel person, but not like nomad. I eventually want to
Yeah.
come back to my bed. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
like sleeping in your own bed when you get back from a
Yes.
trip. But yeah,
Deeply agree.
I definitely resonate with that. And it also makes me wonder too, like, this part of, like, the evolution of your spiritual journey and everything, and like one part of that is like your ability to travel inwardly, to travel, to go into meditation and find yourself in other realms and find yourself connecting with guides and beings and however sometimes, and you'll relate to this, sometimes whether or not you like it. Like, one time I found myself getting, like, pulled out into outer space, and I was like, where are we going? And then I, like, plopped in front of a planet, and it looked like a cotton ball, and I remember thinking, like, oh, that looks really cold. I don't know if I want it. And then all of a sudden I felt my, like, consciousness getting pulled down into this, and I was like, I guess we're going. And then I was like, oh, this is actually, like, all sunny and nice. Those were just clouds. Like, this is great. It's
Mm,
so funny how, like, a lot of the travel themes, so I love that you share that, like, the travel themes can, like, show up in so many different ways that, like,
yeah.
just because you're physically in one place doesn't mean that you yourself, your consciousness, can't travel elsewhere.
Yes.
Um,
Ugh.
and
One of
that in
my
its
favorite ways to travel is into crystals. The first time that I did an into a crystal practice and, like, like shrunk myself down and like went into the crystal and like the crystals that have those like flat planes inside them, like especially like clear ones where you like tilt them and like a whole flat plane like reflects. I got in there and like started sitting in the center of the crystal and meditating and practicing, and I would put it on different parts of my body and like go into it and then come back out of it and go back into it and come back out of it, and like, oh my God, my whole tray of crystals just turned into literally like being a world traveler and like picking one out for the day and getting it, and the wisdom and how old and how it's formed. It's like the first time that you put your hands on a tree ring, like when a stump is cut and your hands are on a tree ring and you're like, it's like watching a home movie. Like, I'm experiencing life in a way that is, like, so nonverbal and so non-pictorial and is so experientially based, but it is this ancient wisdom and is this, like, almost like being back in the womb where you're, like, experiencing mother from the inside out. That is how I really experience, like, crystal practices and plant practices where you're, like, connecting to their wisdom and their truth, and that travel, like, I got so distracted for, like, months when I found that practice. I was just like, "This
I
is all I
know.
wanna do."
I love that, and, like, it's such a reflection of how you're like, this adventurer side of you,
Mhm.
that it's like you don't have to leave anywhere to go on these grand, exciting adventures of sacred wisdom
Yes.
and knowledge. Oh my gosh, I've never actually traveled into a crystal before. I should definitely
Oh
try
my god,
that.
you're gonna have to try it.
I
Yeah,
know.
you'll have to try it.
They always talk about different things for crystals, but I've never thought about like traveling inside. So I
Yeah.
love that.
I'll
I'll have to
have
put
to
that on
show
my.
you I'll have to show you one time. I have well, apophylate's one of my favorite crystals, and I had a apophyllite pyramid, and they have those, like, planes in them a lot of time, and mine must have had a flat plane, and it was a little pyramid, and I sat it on my third eye, and I went into deep meditation. It was probably, like, over an hour, probably under 3 hours, and I woke up from the meditation in a very disoriented state, like something had, like, jolted me out, and the crystal's in 2 pieces. Like, I literally, like, schismed the crystal, mind you, like, on a plane that it has. So, like, for somebody who doesn't know crystals very well, when they have those planes inside of them, they easily break in that way. Either they're heated up, or they're dropped, or they get cold, or, like, these different things, and that's, like, where they would naturally break. So it's not like, "Oh, I, like, abnormally sliced it down the middle." Like, it had a plane, but it didn't fall off of me, and, like, I felt the experience of it schisming, and that's what, like, pulled me out, and to this day, it has such a special little place on my altar because it, like, reminds me of when I was really little and could do the, like, telekinesis things that, like, everybody would tell you you couldn't do, and then, like, when you get older, telekinesis is way harder when you're older. When you have, like, all of these other imprints of, like, "Oh, you can't move it." I don't know if you've ever worked with a PSI wheel, the one where they, like, put the little dome over it with the tin foil so that you can practice, like, moving it inside the glass container, but, like, that took me a little while to be able to do, and I remember doing stuff like moving the blinds and, like, doing all that kinda stuff when I was little, but then, like, as an adult, you first start and your natural inclination is like, "Okay, I'm gonna make it move," whereas my mentor showed me that, like, if you become one with it and move versus, like, trying to imprint your will on it. So here's me like, like like 11 in Stranger Things, just, like, stressing out, trying to do it, and then she, like, came and explained that to me, and I was like, "Oh, way easier," and just, like, being one with that, like, dropping into that non-third dimensional space where we can inhabit the same space-time, but not, like, physically. Oh my god, moving it way easier. But that was a really
Wow.
cool, like, tool and skill set. I'll have to show you some of those pics.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny, I was thinking back to, like, what did I do when I was a kid? Mine was a lot of, like, electromagnetic waves and, like,
Yeah,
radio waves and, like,
yeah.
manipulation of that. But, yeah, I have, like, spiritual friends who one of my friends, she has, like, not intentionally, but, like, started her car battery when it died, like, on several occasions, and I'm
Wow.
like,
How cool.
"Oh, okay."
You're like, "That's
Yeah.
a really practical witchy skill set." Like, how do we develop that one? I wanna learn that one so that, like, I am the jumper cables. Be
I
the jumper
know.
cables.
I mean, amazing. But you know what? One of these days we'll be able to do any of it once once we truly, like, I think, believe. But I love the way that you talked about how you worked with the energy and becoming like one with it instead of, because I
Yeah.
think, especially like in such a heavily patriarchal society, that this
Yes.
pushing,
Yes.
the owning, the
Yeah.
controlling, that sort of energy.
Imposing. Yes.
Yeah, it really doesn't, like, allow for you to be within and with and more in that feminine type of energy, and so that's,
Mhm.
like, such a beautiful explanation of, like, how to really imbue and work with things instead of constantly being in this, like, against one or the other when really it's just becoming one with the, the space of the object. So
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Yeah, that like ability to allow your consciousness to move into other physical spaces, energetic spaces, vibrational spaces, locations. And like, I'm sure that's an aspect that you teach and connect with when we're talking like astral projection, remote viewing, lucid dreaming. So, talk to us a little bit about the ways that you like to go about intuitive and psychic development, because it is so unique to everyone. And yet, there are these like pillars and methodologies and skills labs and practices that like each of us can all go into, and yes, the results are completely different, but like it's really cool to have some sort of framework versus just kind of like those of us who bumbled into our gifts or they happen to you and then you're like, okay, like this can be a burden if you don't know how to wield it. And so like how do you help people learn how to like not control them but wield them, work with them?
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because, you know this well, like, everybody's a little different, and I think about the work that I do, especially when it comes to, like, intuitive and psychic development. I try to create a lot of um, my programming, my curriculum, whatever it is, that I'm doing, and I try to base it around, like, what support and guidance did I need when I first started? What did I not have that I
Yeah.
needed? And then what was the sort of click for me? Like, what was the
Mhm.
thing that, because one of the biggest things that I see with psychic and intuitive development is a lot of nervousness, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I think you shared about this in somewhere your social media, maybe like your fear of your gifts. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen when I access, which that used to be me too. Like, I was like, I don't know. And I grew up like evangelical, that kind of where it was like, don't peer behind the curtain, da da da. So I was just like, oh my God. And another story, like, I can see like lower frequency beings, like all that stuff. Like, I have so many
Mhm.
crazy stories. So with all of that, there was a lot of fear. And so it's sort of how I design. It's like, how do I move you out of fear of your gifts, of your power, of what I'm capable of doing? How do I move you out of fear and into that confidence of, oh, I can do this. This is no problem. And
Yeah.
the way that I feel has been the most light bulb moment-y for people is truly when they get into my small group programs, because they get to see in community with other people, like, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. That was a huge light
Yeah.
bulb moment for me. It took me several years. I was so nervous about my gifts. I didn't know what I could do. I was too scared to be in front of. I was just had so much fear that when I finally, several years later, got into a small group program, people were reaching out to me to do readings for them. And I was like, what is
Yeah.
happening here? Like, I
Yeah.
cannot believe. And so you start to realize where like, what area you're really good at or where you might want to dive into deeper. And so I expose in my small group programs, usually, expose my students to like different aspects of this. So we might work with crystals
Yeah.
one time. We might work with channeling, Akashic. It kind of depends. Every
Yeah.
time is a slightly different thing. So you can pick out like what really resonates with you, but the biggest thing I will say that has really helped people with their belief in themselves and their self-confidence and what they can do at a psychic and intuitive level is when I have, at a certain point, we start doing blind readings. And the
Mhm.
blind readings have been so fun because they will start all sharing similar messages, if not almost the same. They
Fuck
will
yeah.
start using like we had like Alice in Wonder Mad Hatter terminology from a couple people, and I'm like, this is what, and they don't even know what the question
Yeah.
is. And then
Yeah.
we read the question and they're like, that's insane because so a belief in that, I'm not making this up.
Yes.
there I am able to validate because everybody else in this group had similar or almost identical readings to me. And then the person whose question they answered also gave them deeper context into why this reading was even more meaningful than you could ever think to be. So that has been one of from just a very like specific space, like has been one of the biggest catalysts for people all of a sudden. Like I have a group program right now that most of those people were in a previous group program with me in like late spring, early summer, and I was dying because we had taken a couple months off. We came back. By week 1, they sound like professional readers, and that's
Mhm.
not, I know, and I was like,
Yeah.
and they had developed this confidence, and my main guide is Archangel Michael. And I had a conversation with him one day talking about our gifts and how you elevate and grow. And he was like, the more that you believe in yourself, that is
Yeah.
how you access that depth. It's like you
Yes.
are on a journey to remove the fear, the second guessing, and he was like, the more you believe, the clearer they come through. And that's also why we do the inner work. Because
Mhm.
once you can transmute some of those lower frequency emotions, the heaviness, the lack of confidence, the lack of poor boundaries, and all of these things, it opens you up to greater clarity to accessing your psychic and intuitive gifts. So that is also another component that I often will work into my small group programs, is transmuting. I call it like the witch wound sometimes.
Yeah. Mm.
But really focusing on like, what is the one thing that has been holding you back right now from really accessing your gifts? And we use that thread to see how it starts to come up as you start to work with your gifts so that you start to heal it. You start to really like see it play out because when you create that awareness, then you can transmute and then you can like kind of let it go and move into another
Yeah.
level. That
I
was a
would love
lot.
to hear a few of the common ones that you see people identifying in your groups. Like, what are, for somebody who's hearing this, I know the practitioners listening are like, yes, yeah, completely, and, like, are thinking of the time that you, like, caught your thread and were like, "I found mine and started to unweave mine." But for someone who is a little bit more spiritually curious, who's tapping into their gifts for the first time, can you give us a couple of, like, specific examples of what you mean by identifying the, like, one big thing or, like, one of the big things that's been holding you back? Like, I know you mentioned a little bit about, like, fear of your gifts, not knowing, but, like, what are some of the other ones that you've seen just to kinda give everybody a little smattering to consider, and then hopefully you take this and go like, okay, what is mine, and use this as an opportunity to check in with yourself internally and go, what is one of the bigger things that's been holding me back from literally letting me expand in that? Because I love the visual you gave of like, it does keep you small, it does keep you limited when you have one of these like big limitations on you, and a lot of opening yourself up and intuitive and psychic development is the shedding of the containers, the shedding of the limitations, the shedding of the perspectives that hold you in, the like hearing the judgmental people, hearing the, oh, maybe I'm making it up. And when you start to let go of that and start to take up a lot more expansive space, it does flow right through. And you're like, wow, there's no denying that. So what do
Yeah.
you find commonly that like is holding people back?
One big one that I remember, I had this one small group like last year, maybe about maybe yeah, maybe it was last year, and it was interesting because I always say groups come together for a reason, whether they know
Mhm.
it or not.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this heavy thread in this group of communication, not sharing your voice. I had a one of the students in that class literally had surgery on her vocal cords like
Yeah.
6 months prior. And so this fear of using your voice, and then a secondary one, which is actually one that I had for a little while, was I share my voice, will I hurt someone? If
Mm,
I share my voice, is that actually going to impact someone in a negative way? And especially in the psychic world, when we're dealing with like potential outcomes, future outcomes, we're following threads of energy. If I talk about this outcome, am I going to negatively impact that person? And some of us are dealing with past life wounds around our voice did hurt people. And that's
yes.
part of our karmic, um, wound that we are experiencing all sides of that. And so that is a big one, is feeling confident in sharing your voice, but also, if I share my voice, will I be heard? Will anyone
Mm,
care? And then, will I hurt somebody? Will somebody be negatively impacted because I'm sharing this information? And that
yes,
can be a big one.
that happens for me so often, especially around content creation. So, like, I've been doing a ton of work with like multiple mentors around how to craft converting content, like how to take your magical abilities and like kind of learn how to navigate the rules of social media to kind of use them to your benefit to get your message out there to those right aligned people. And one, I remember this so clearly. One of my mentors was like, okay, I want you to like really give some value, really deliver, like solve a problem, answer a question, guide them through something like you would a client. And so I like write this, we like go back and forth in Telegram and I like riff or write it out. And then like she like tells me about it. And every moment I'm like writing it out, I'm like, okay, but if this gets into the hands of the wrong person, like if they don't know how to protect, or if I say ground, but they don't know how to ground, or they don't put the bow, or then they do, and I'm just like, okay, hang on. So, like, before I even finished writing the whole thing out, I had to like come in and do a practice in and of myself because I'm like, this is not right here and right now. Very much like you're saying, of like, this connects to this not only ancestral and multiple lives, but like the different things that have been said to me and put upon me that, like, this is so dangerous, which is so bad, blah, 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 all of these things. And so, like, sharing this protocol or practice. And then I'm like, okay, how many other people on the internet are sharing their thing that, like, yes, if someone doesn't research that medical herbal supplement advice and it interacts with something of there, I'm like, this is everywhere. And I am taking this on from like lifetime, lifetime, lifetime and other people's projections. So like, let's come back to just me. And it took me about like 10, 15 minutes of doing a practice with myself to like pull all those pieces out and go like, okay, as long as I'm listing like, okay, I recommend you ground, I recommend you protect. Here's how I would generally start this practice. Give the information and then at the bottom say, and if this feels overwhelming, or if you need more additional support, or if you have never guided yourself through a practice like that, and then like pitching my actual services, I'm like, okay, that for me is of integrity. That for me is not dangerous. Like I'm running it through my own lenses instead of running it through the external lenses of everybody else's perceptions. And then all that ancestral, because like the witch wound can be a gaping wound. And like if you don't address it, it can permeate into so many things because it has been so unsafe so many lifetimes for us to be resourced women, outspoken women, gifted women, the keepers of so much. And so, like, we do carry a lot of that with us because very few of us who are gifted like this is our first time being gifted. I have very rarely come across, especially a woman, who has never in a previous iteration been gifted.
Yeah.
Most of us have done this for several lifetimes before this.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about integrity. That's also, so when I talked earlier about like, or when I spoke earlier about, creating what I needed based on what I didn't
Mhm.
have, it was also from like working with people who sucked. Like, to be totally honest,
Yes,
like, I know that's not the highest form of, but like, there were people who, or I watched them be so out of integrity or cause so much
yes,
chaos and harm in this space by acting like this was the Wild West, by having terrible energetic boundaries, by, again, not
yes.
thinking about what the consequence of like the information that they're sharing. There is a lot of that on TikTok. There is a lot of that in the social media space where there are people who, if you read energy and you are able to see things that you and I can see, like you watch them and it's just like I mean, I have friends who literally will send me videos and be like, "What do you think of them?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." I'm also a Scorpio, so I don't fuck around. I'm like, "No," like I'm more
No.
skeptical than I am open.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
or
yeah.
I'm like,
You have to be, because like,
yeah, or
I do all this work to maintain, like, this has to be a pristine motherfucking me, myself, and I, like every facet of me, my human body, my witch, my priestess, my bubble, my energy, my subconscious. Like, I have to keep this so clean, so clear, so pristine, so that when I get into a container with you, I can feel and sense and understand and pull apart what is all yours. I need to make sure that my shit isn't muddying that up to be able to support and help you. So, like, fucking around and finding out with some of this, especially TikTok shit, not worth it.
I
Not worth
know.
it at all.
I know. And
Mm-mm.
like and there are some of these people on, sorry, I'm like, here, let's just shit talk. But not really. It's just like a conversation around like having solid energetic boundaries, which is something people in the spiritual community, like they struggle with so much.
Yes.
And it is a part of it. Like when you live in the heart and you are really trying to be heart centered, you are learning discernment. That is something that I constantly have to remind, my clients or friends is when we talk about boundaries, because some of them are so heart-centered. And I
Mhm.
see this with some of these channelers and people on TikTok, particularly, especially like certain channelers or whatever. And like I said, I've had friends send me their videos, and I'm like, look, she is so kind and high frequency. She has terrible boundaries with her channeling. Like her channeling is all over the place. And I said, I'm like, you're happy, welcome to watch her. Like, because she's like
Right.
beautiful, loving energy. But I said, I would not believe anything that she says, because the disbursement of the energy field that she's like shooting up into the air is so scattered right now, because she doesn't know what she's she hasn't set up a solid framework or practice for her channeling practice. So, and then a couple weeks later, my friend sends me another video from this creator, and she literally goes, I don't know who I'm channeling. And I'm like, this bitch has like 30 plus thousand followers. So I also, and this is, oh my gosh, like I have so many things. I taught this last week, or this was one of the things I taught in my class, is a lot of us feel so alone, especially when you're learning to develop these intuitive and psychic gifts. We feel so alone. And what we don't talk about, and we think it's just because, oh, well, not enough people know us. But there is also a difference. Oh my gosh, I think his name is Hawkins, Dr. Hawkins. He has this like consciousness level scale
Mm.
from like 0 to 1,000 or whatever. One of the things that I teach, I'll show this scale, and I basically say, like, look, think of this as a triangle. Most of the people that you are seeing on TikTok and a lot of these healers, because once you step into around like a 600 level frequency, you have stepped into, you'll see teachers, healers, people in this space. That does not mean that they are necessarily working from high frequency or high spiritual principles, okay?
Yes.
And I said, but the most of the people that I work with are in the 700 and up for a frame. And I said, think about that in a triangle. Think about your pond, your fish pond, when you get there. So the other thing that's really important is not only do you not have as many people that are in your fish pond, but people aren't going to even understand you or see you or hear you, because you are at a frequency they have not accessed yet. There is nothing wrong with that. We are all in our own personal evolution and development, but it's a way I want them to feel seen and understood. And I want
Mm.
whoever's listening to feel seen and understood that sometimes what that can mean is that just literally the words coming out of your mouth, like I like blah, 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 like the Peanuts
Yes.
gang, just simply
Yes.
because they haven't accessed that level yet to hear you. And just like you couldn't understand something a year ago that you can understand today, it's that same evolution for some people. And so we have compassion because we were there once. And I also want you to understand that you might not be, even as practitioners, your
Yes.
clientele might be much smaller than like a social media witch who has 100,000 followers, because they can access a much larger section of the frequency triangle, if you will,
Yes.
consciousness level. And I think
Yes.
that's a
So
really important, yeah. And I think that's really important for people to know that, like, you're not crazy, especially women. We're
yes.
always told, like, oh, I'm being crazy. You're not being crazy. You've just been dismissed and, like, killed for eons, like,
Yes.
for speaking up. So,
This
anyways,
happened to me
yeah,
exactly. I was in a coaching program for, once again, content, because, like, exactly what you're saying. When your pool is, like, much smaller, when what you're saying, it is hard to, like, buy into the sales, the marketing, the hooks, the, like, "Oh, let's hook stack." I'm like, "Hook stack?" I'm like, "Do you know what I'm saying in this? Do you know what I'm giving in this? Like, what are you talking about?" So I, like, submit my piece of content to get edited by this, like, coach, and she's like, "I have no idea what you're saying."
yeah. Well, and you're a projector. So, like, sales and, like, writing and the way that we do work is not going to be like 80% of the world. So, I've also, and it's probably like a program you've had to let go of that took me a while, is like, I had to let go of, like, traditional sales strategy does not work for me. The way that I sell, or the way that like, selling and waiting for an invitation is a very different thing for projectors energetically, than
Mhm.
like a generator, a manifesting generator, or even a manifester. So, yeah, it's so interesting. But yeah, I've had to let go, and it's wild because generators and manifesting generators, like, when we try to talk to them about projectors or understand, it's like they're short circuiting. They don't understand.
Yeah, and they get uncomfortable, like, especially in that, like, teaching student dynamic because, like, obviously, like, us as high level practitioners, I can be this phenomenally gifted seer S who can manipulate energy and quantumly blah, 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 and yet I'm, like, here in this in this group program about, like, "Hey, can you help me with my content so that it converts and lands and blah, blah, blah." I remember the first time that I, like, paid an ads firm and she was like, "So I would like to add an additional call that I'm not gonna charge you for, just so that you can explain to me what you're selling." Because she's like, "I would really love to understand what you're selling so that I can do the best work for you, because this isn't like," and she listed off a couple of other, like, kinds of clients that she had, and she's like, "This is not like that." And I'm like, "You are so right, sweetie, you are so right. Yeah, let's add that other call on so that I could explain it to you." But, like, they will receive it and they feel so, I get the vibration of, like, "Oh, I'm trying to show that I am the authority, and, like, I really know what I'm talking about even though I have no idea what you're talking about." And I'm like, "You don't have to prove that to me, like, I am this serious, like, I picked you for a reason, like, I'm here for this reason." And I think it's very unique to a lot of us that, like, when you are so gifted in certain spaces, to go up into that and really own that, you also really acknowledge the areas that you're not very gifted at. Like, I will be very clear with people about, like, the parts of humaning that are very difficult for me because of this get where, like, I understand that, like, it's not 100% in all places. And I've even struggled a lot in my relationships in that way because I'm like, this isn't gonna be like a 50-50 relationship partner of mine. No, no. I'm like, maybe 90-10 in some areas. And, like, I'm not saying that we won't both contribute equally, like, we won't both show up in the same amount, but it's gonna look completely differently. And so if you're thinking we're gonna, like, you'll do the dishes one day and I'll do the dishes one, I'm like, no, it's not gonna look like that. Like, there's gonna be a lot of things. And even with, like, my partner now, we will have these, like, touch bases where they will openly ask me, like, "Okay, can you just tell me a little bit about all the things you're doing behind the scenes that I have, like, no idea about? Because I'm really feeling, like, unbalanced. But I know the moment that you tell me all the things that you've been doing that I just, like, don't even notice or aren't even aware of or can't really conceive of being a thing, that, like, I'll feel better about it." And I just start rattling and then they're like, "Okay, that's enough. Like, I'm good. Like, I feel good now." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Because there's a lot, they're like, "No, no, no, that's enough. Like, I'm good." So I deeply resonate with that because being a projector and being in such a unique industry, especially when I'm in, like, programs where, like, other people are not spiritual practitioners, if I'm doing something that's, like, more businessy focused, and then I'm like,
Hmm.
"Okay, can you guys talk to me a little bit about how we would transform that funnel strategy for, like, blah 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 and blah blah?" And they're like, I'm like, "Okay, maybe later, maybe it'll come to you."
Yeah. Well, and that is, I think that's one of the reasons why people want to work with us because it's spiritual businesses or people who are in the spiritual field. And I talked about this offline a little bit, but like I'm working with a local, like, brick and mortar business here that's they're in the process of expansion, and they are spiritual and they want to create a new like business model for how they infuse that into their growth and expansion. But I also work with solopreneurs. But the thing is yes, you can take a brick and mortar that might have a strategy that's a little more easy to plug and play.
Uh-huh.
And it's a little, it might be a little different, but there are people like us where it's not cookie cutter.
Yes.
Creating a content or marketing strategy or funnel or whatever you want to do, doing the work that we do does not always translate. And so I think one of the gifts that we have is being able to, again, projectors see you. Like we
Mhm.
see you. And so what we do is we take you individually and we create and help you communicate and share and like put something out into the world that is not cookie cutter and that really aligns with the work that you want to do. And again, what I will also say is we're doing work that is not stuff that other people are always doing. So the people
Yes.
who come to me are the ones where things haven't worked in the past, where they need a different angle, where they really want to be seen. And I think
Mhm.
that's the gift, especially. And I don't know if this is you, but I want to tell you, I have yet, especially in my one on one practice, and even I think in my small group, I don't think I've worked with a single projector. They're almost
Really?
all, yeah, almost all manifesting generators and generators. Because I ask everybody before we start. Um, and like I have a manifester this time in my small group program, but everybody else is a generator. And I'm like, where are my projectors? I'm like, I
Right?
see
You're
you.
like, they're
And
out there seeing it
I know.
anyway.
But in my, like, friend group, I have a ton of projector friends, like, a
Yeah.
lot of my friends because we, like, see each other and, like, "I see you, I see
Mhm.
you, I see," like, we
Yes.
just see each other so much. So it cracks me up that in my personal life, I have a lot of projector friends, and then in my business, almost everybody's a generator and manifesting generator, and it just cracks me up. I'm like, "Huh, that's
Yeah.
interesting."
Ugh. What you were saying earlier about how when you develop your intuitive and psychic development programs, it's like for the you years ago, that's very much how I've started to shift my marketing, where I'm like, okay, when I really got to this point of being like, I'm looking for a me. Like, I'm looking for a me. Like, I want someone who can really see me because when I feel strongly about the fact that, like, when you are, especially projectors, when you are priestesses, when you are these, like, spiritual advisors, oracles, seers, extremely gifted energy healers, and you start to really allow yourself to do the expansion that we've talked about, where you're opening up and out and you're dropping these limitations, your partner might not be able to see you all the way. Your friends might not be able to see you all the way. Your family probably won't be able to see you all the way. They're definitely not going to be able to hold you in the way that you know how to hold a container, the safety, the sovereignty, the bilocation getting it. I'm like, I have yet to be guided by someone in this way, held in this way, seen in this way. And so until I really got clear on all of that, I was so lonely in my own practice. I'm like, I'm giving all of this beautiful, phenomenal, life changing, trajectory changing work to other people. And I'm like, I desire that for myself. And so, like, now I've really shifted marketing to that person. Like you're
Mhm.
saying, where like a lot of your clients come to you and they're like, I've tried so many things and like, it's just not working because I don't need a cookie cutter. I don't need to like pay someone to give me their methodology, their template that is just plug and chug. Like, I actually need something that is massaged really uniquely for me, that is based on how I am supported, not just support, based on how I feel safe and held, not just the holding of a standard safe container. For me to be seen, that is much different than like you are an active listener. And like that experience of really being willing to express to myself how unseen, unheld, unsupported, unmet I was. and then bringing that, like, wounded, alone person back to me and being like, "Okay, baby girl, now I'm speaking to you in my marketing. Now I'm speaking to you in my content, and now I am finding those versions in different places." And I'm like, you are my soulmate client. You are the entrepreneur who's ready to transition into soulpreneurship. Like, come be seen and held and supported in a way that's literally going to change the trajectory of your life and your business, because I know exactly what that's like. Like, I've been there, I've felt that. It sucks. I get it. But it also means that, like, that is the opportunity for it to go somewhere else. And like, that shift alone in marketing has made the world of difference.
And, like, who better to lead someone through a journey than you who know intimately and expertly how to go down that path. And I think too that's
Yes.
something that I even had a conversation with one of my private clients where I was like, "Look, people need to believe that you have the expertise and the knowledge to get them where they want to go." And so there's a lot of people who don't want to be visible, they don't want to show up, they don't want to share, they don't want to write, they don't want to put themselves out there. But how are people gonna trust that you can take them on the journey, that you can solve their problems, that you can be the one if you
Yeah.
don't step into the authority figure that you are in your space? And when you can do that through your transmutation and your alchemy, that is like almost like the purest form of marketing in a way because you know how to help them. But again, it's like people need to trust that you can take them there. And if they don't trust that, then like, and I see this all the time, especially like I do some work with like an ICF coach training business, and
Yeah.
they're great. They're like women owned, women led, love it. But I always see the baby coaches, they're our new coaches. It's an evolution, and we forget that if you want high ticket or you want
Mm.
clients that are lining up to work with you, that they need to believe that you can create the transformation. And that doesn't mean always a funnel, a this, a that, a cookie cutter approach, but it does mean that you need to be have like this authority energy, that you have confidence. Because if you show up and you have a lot of confidence, well,
Yeah.
they're going to go to us instead.
Yeah. Yes, because we're doing the work that it takes to be able to share our own journeys in a way that is digested so that we can share with someone. Here, where I started might not be where you're starting, but like, feel the vibration, feel the struggle, feel the limitation, feel the like location of it. And if that resonates with you, I've gone from here to here, and here are some of the things that I've gone through. One of the last posts I did, I was like, I walked through this awakening barefoot over broken glass so that I could like guide you and it be so much easier and smoother and more supported. Like, you can do this more efficiently. You can do this more gracefully when you have someone who can hold that chrysalis so that you can unbecome in the safest way. And like, I'm not giving you your wings, babe. Those are yours. But like, the way in which someone who's been through it and who led themselves through it can support you, like, this is such a gift that you can give yourself.
And like efficiency, like you were saying, like
Yes.
already went through it, so now I can tell you how to do a hop, skip, and a jump, and we're gonna
Yes.
get you to where you want to be in a much clearer, quicker way, which we love
Yes.
quicker, not always quicker, but
Mhm.
I always joke, I'm going back to the awakening from an awakening. I'm like, are
Yeah.
you really transforming if you aren't like on your knees crying and screaming to the
Right.
universe? Like, have you
And
really like been through a dark night of the soul if you're not like crying
and
and
sometimes
screaming in
it's
the
in the
world?
same day. I think that, like, when you get to this level, you're like, I'm not talking about, like, you for 3 months are in the pit of despair, like, way back when I had the big one when I was little and stuff. Like, I would spend extended periods of time in these now sometimes I cycle through that in an entire day, and I'm just like, to the moon or sun? Which planet's doing something weird? Like, who just hit their apex? Because I just shifted from like this vibration up here to like deep down here, and now I'm like back up here and I'm over here and like allowing it, like the tides. Like, the water can shift so aggressively, so intensely for such a short amount of time, and then 5 minutes later, it's like sunny at the beach again, and everybody's like, "What the fuck just happened?" And I'm like, Yeah, that happens inside me all the time. That happens in my womb space, that happens in my heart space, that happens in my third eye, that happens in my connection. Like, there's so many ways that that manifests inside me, and to be able to, like, ride the waves and give my human what she needs to navigate the thing that, like, my priestess is, like, sitting in there conjuring the thunder, loving it, and my human's like, "Are we okay?"
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like that, and that's kind of, this whole year has been like quite
Yes.
deep dark alchemical year for me. And it's interesting because I love that point you made about like, because it really is like in the midst of the storm and the chaos and everything, like how can you be in your body? How can you ride through it with a grounded energy? Like how do you
Yes.
stand strong and firm and in your body in the midst of the storm raging around you? Like that
Mm,
is a huge sort of shift, I think, in your and my personal development and my evolution and my ego and so many things that it's like when everything burns to the ground, who are you? You know? And
yes.
I think that's what we kind of forget. And some people, I work with clients who are like I'll be 40 next month and no, tomorrow is October 1st. I will be 40 in November 13th.
Wow.
Next year is gonna be on Friday. I love, like, a Friday the 13th
Oh
birthday.
yeah,
I
love
know, I'm like,
that.
"Woo!" But not this year. But with that, it's like oh, sorry, my cat has been making special appearances.
He's like, "I
Um,
love it."
I know. I joke that, like, when I adopted her that, I was like, my transition to witch is complete because now I have a
Yeah,
black cat."
and now I have my black kitty. I love that. You're like, "My familiar has arrived."
She named herself. I remember she was in the box and I look over in my car and she's like in the little carrier and I'm like, "What do you want your name to be?" And immediately I heard Freya and I was like, "Okay,
Oh, I love
Freya it is." So I was joking that she named herself. But oh my gosh, the where was I?
your
ADHD.
birthday. You're on
Yes.
your
I
birthday.
know. But the I think this evolution of these ego deaths and the being able to stand because nothing matters but the internal world, right? Everything is a reflection of your inner world. And I think a lot of times when you're awakening from the awakening, that's one of the things you also realize. And as you're going through any level of awakening, we go through this like, I can manifest anything. I want to manifest this.
Mhm.
We manifest a lot from our ego. We manifest from, I can do this, I can do that, and it's like bigger, better, blah, 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 blah. But none of that is really connected to the core of who we are. It's not
Yes.
connected to the internal self, it's
Mhm.
connected to the external. And so I think
Yes.
like one of the things this year has been teaching me, and I'm sure I will download even more through this year as I continue to process, is that one, everything is a reflection of your inner world, but two, how can you stand in that grounded priestess energy when everything is burning to the ground, when everything is falling apart? Who are you? Who are you when there's nothing left? Because it's not about the fancy cars, it's not about the multiple homes or the private jets or the number in your bank account. None of that matters when you don't even know who you are. And you
Yeah.
don't and I think a lot of people find that problem when they
Yes.
step into this spiritual journey and the spiritual awakening is they don't know who the fuck they are. And I
Yeah.
see it especially in you and I talked about this. There is like an evolution in the spiritual journey. And you get to a point where you like understand manifestation and all you want to do is manifest like crazy shit. But then all of that's just like from the ego and you still
Yeah.
don't know who you
And
are.
it's a
And
cage.
yeah,
And you're like, "I just built another cage." Like, I thought this was gonna help me get out of that cage, and it got me out of that cage, and I just realized I built another cage, and I'm like, "You are my soulmate client. Come over here and work with me." I'm like, that's that exact moment where, like, you leave corporate and you make your own job and you make this money and you're successful in this way, and then you're like, "Wait, the moments that I slow down, I am still feeling empty. I'm still waiting for the vacation. I'm still waiting for the weekend. I'm still waiting for the retreat. I'm still waiting for this like big talking experience. And like, I am feeling empty, and exactly what you're saying, because I am disconnected from the pieces that are always there that will never leave. And I'm more connected to the external. And when you connect to the external and let the external inform the internal, you're like, oh, wait, that's backwards, because that I can lose, that can change, that can shift. Also, like, I might want different things. And so then the destination is no longer the like, woo, I've made it. You're like, no, it's how I journey, not where I'm getting to, because I'm always going to be getting to somewhere else until I'm dead. So how I travel is the it. And I'm like, yes, come over here. It's time for a priestess. No longer just a business coach, no longer just a therapist, no longer just an energy healer, but like it's time for this high level work, this spiritual advisor work, this oracle work, this seer work, this priestess work. And I'm so grateful to have these types of conversations because we're each doing it in our own unique way. But one of the things that I think unifies this like priestess path, whether or not someone identifies like with that title or term, is that we are teaching sacred remembrance, this like coming back to this internal work, coming back to this internal peace, coming back to the thing that like always has been, will always be, and is. And like, yes, you can use that I am to create anything, but like exactly like you're saying, where are you creating from? Is it this human ego, or is it this deep soul's blueprint? Is it this true alignment? Is it your heart's expression? And how do you even know about how to go about doing that?
Yeah, yeah. It's huge. It's brave work. The people that we work
Yes.
with are incredibly brave because
So
this
brave.
is not easy work. Like I have literally like let go of clients because they could not keep going because
Yeah.
it was scary for them and they weren't
Yes.
ready. And that's okay. Like
Yep.
everybody in their own time, but you want to see power, a powerful priestess, a powerful woman, it's from someone who creates from the inside, who can stand in the middle of a storm and not be swayed. Like that is power. And it's always from the inside. It is not what the external looks like. But man, you want to talk about being intimidated by other people is when somebody like that steps into the room and you can
Yes.
feel it. Like your energy will speak before you ever say a word.
Mm, what a note to end on. Girl, this conversation was so good. I want you to share with everybody where they can get more of you, what you have to offer, tell people how to take that next step if they're like, yes, all of these things, and also these programs that you're talking about. I want to learn more.
Yeah, yeah. So, right now I have a wait list for private mentorship, but you can always apply on my website, lindsay-lee.com. I'm mostly on TikTok, although I haven't posted lately. Maybe I'll like re-up that. Lindsay Lee
Yeah.
official. It's all my socials. I'm wrapping up my small group program right now, but I think I'm gonna launch an intensive. I've been noodling a little bit on what I want
Yeah.
that to look like, but an intuitive and psychic development, potentially channeling, getting clear on that, but most likely in November. So it'll be shorter. Usually my small group programs are about 3 months long. This will be within November and maybe only like two weeks, 3 weeks. So it'll
Ooh,
be kind
okay.
of a, yeah, condensed version. So small groups. Oh my gosh. I also offer quantum healing hypnosis, which is
Mm,
amazing. And then I also offer some different types of like psychic business strategy sessions. So if you ever want to get a quick, not a quick, but like a really high touch dose of support via hypnosis or, you know, my psychic abilities, you can book those on my website as well.
and I'll provide all the links in the show notes
Yeah.
so you guys can check all of it out. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Lindsay.
you.
It's always a lovely meeting of the Lindsays.
I know. I love it. I love it.